Hello, friends. I'm Janine, and welcome to JC Lowe's Next Chapter. In my first video, Why I Retired After 22 Years of Teaching, I shared what led to my retirement, the changing demands, the exhaustion, and my mother's need for care. Today, I want to talk about what was happening inside of me before I was ready to admit it was time to leave. If you are wondering whether a season in your own life may be ending, these five signs might help you listen to what your heart has been trying to tell you. The first sign was that I kept placing all my hope in next year. Teachers understand the fresh start of a new school year. There's new students, new classes, and another chance to begin again. For many years, that fresh start excited me. But near the end of my career, I found myself saying, maybe next year the classes will be different. Maybe next year the workload will be a little easier. Maybe next year I'll have more energy. Now, there's nothing wrong with hoping that things will improve, but eventually I had to ask myself, how many times have I already said, maybe next year? I realized I was not making a plan. I was postponing a truth. And the truth was, the job and I had both changed. So ask yourself, are you looking forward to your next season, or are you hoping it will rescue you from the one you're in? The second sign was that I could no longer fully enjoy my time away from school. On weekends, I would be home with my husband, cooking, doing laundry, and trying to rest. But as Sunday got closer, I could feel Monday getting closer too. I would think about lessons, papers that needed grading, and everything I still needed to do. Even when I wasn't in front of my computer, part of my mind was still at school. Breaks helped, but I would begin them tired, spend part of them recovering, and then feel the stress return as the first day back to school approached. I used to think I simply needed more rest. Eventually, I realized I didn't only need sleep, I needed peace. Sleep helps a tired body, but peace, it allows you to enjoy a meal, a slow morning, or time with the people you love without mentally rushing towards your next responsibility. I had started measuring my free time by how long I had until I needed to go back to work. When I recognized that, I knew something was wrong. The third sign went deeper than being tired. I began to feel as though I no longer knew who I was outside of my responsibilities. For years, I was a teacher, a wife, a mother, a homemaker, a club sponsor, and the person who tried to handle whatever needed to be done. And there is value in being dependable. But I was so used to asking, what does everyone else need from me? That I rarely stopped to ask, what is happening to me? The things that made me feel like myself, things like gardening, baking, working around my home with in small projects, spending time with my family. Those things were pushed aside because I had little energy for them. And that can happen slowly. Everything may look fine from the outside, while on the inside, you feel farther and farther away from yourself. That was not how I wanted to live the rest of my life. The fourth sign was one that many people may understand very well. It was guilt. When I was at school, I felt guilty because my mother needed more of my time and help. When I was helping my mother, I was thinking about what I still needed to do at school and for my students. When I was working in the evenings, I felt guilty that I wasn't giving more of my attention to my husband, my home, or myself. Even when I tried to rest, there was always something else I felt like I should be doing. No matter where I was, I felt as though I was disappointing someone somewhere else. After my father passed away, my mother needed transportation, meals, help around the house, and companionship. My students also deserved a teacher who was prepared, patient, focused, and present. And the painful truth was, I could not give my mother and my students all of me at the same time. For a while, I treated that as a personal failure. I thought I should be able to manage everything if I just worked harder or became more organized. But it wasn't a time management problem, it was a human limit problem. There are only so many hours in a day and only so much emotional energy that one person could give. Admitting that does not make us weak, it makes us honest. Sometimes guilt is not proof that we are doing something wrong. It is a sign that we are trying to carry more than one person can reasonably carry. And I knew something had to change. The fifth sign was the clearest of all. The thought of staying had become heavier than the thought of leaving. Teaching had given me a title, a routine, meaningful relationships, and structure for my days. Leaving raised many questions. Who would I be if I were no longer a teacher? Would I miss the classroom? Would I regret leaving? But eventually, another question became stronger. What will happen if I stay? When I pictured another year, I didn't feel hope. I felt a heavy weight. I imagined more evenings preparing and grading lessons, more Sundays worrying about what was coming the next week, and more days feeling pulled between school and family. When I pictured leaving, I still felt uncertain, but I also felt relief. The decision was not easy. By having time to care for my mother and be present with my family, that became more important. I didn't know what my next chapter would look like, but I knew what continuing in the same way was going to cost me. And I want other teachers to know this. You don't have to hate teaching to realize it may be time to leave. And you do not need one dramatic moment to give you permission to go. Sometimes it's simply the slow understanding that a chapter has given you what it was meant to give you. And now life is asking something different of you. Leaving the classroom did not erase my 22 years of teaching. The patience, the creativity, the organization, and the care I developed over time came with me. Today, I use those qualities differently. I share my story and I encourage others walking through retirement, caregiving, grief, and new beginnings. My purpose did not end. It simply looks different today. If you're waiting for a giant sign telling you what to do next, perhaps the question to ask is, what quiet truth do I need to admit to myself? You don't need to rush into a decision, but you do deserve to tell yourself the truth. Listening to your life is not quitting. Recognizing your limits is not failing. And closing one chapter does not mean your purpose is over. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit that what once fit us no longer does, and trust that meaning, joy, and purpose can still be waiting on the other side. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Which of these five signs spoke to you the most? And if you're moving through retirement, caregiving, life after teaching, or a new beginning of your own, subscribe and join me here. I'm Janine, and this is JC Lowe's Next Chapter, where we honor where we've been, listen to the season we are in, and find the courage to begin again. I'll see you in the next video.